So we're looking at a possible investment property. The subject property is 23 Duke Drive, New Hyde Park, Herrick Schools. It's a split. The lot size is 10,900. The interior square footage is about 2,200. The bedrooms, we haven't been in the house yet, so it's 3 or 4 bedrooms, and the baths is most likely 2.5 to 3 baths. So let's look out at the outdated comps to determine what the purchase price should be. So all of these are outdated comps that were sold in the past year. They're all splits and they all have Herrick schools. The most important thing to look at here is the school district. This house is in New Hyde Park. So the comps are either New Hyde Park or Manhasset Hills. Both have Herrick School District. So the first comp we're going to look at is 130 Betty Road, New Hyde Park. It's a split, 3 beds, 2.5 baths. The lot is much smaller, so it's 6,000 square feet, and the interior square footage is smaller at 1,798. This house was listed on July 7th at $878 and went under contract on September 2nd. So that's about 2 months that it took to go under contract, but it went under contract around the list price. That's important to look at because it's telling us if people found that list price on target. So in this case, it did take a little longer than usual, but it did go for the list price. So let's take a look at what that house looked like. So this is the exterior. This is the interior. So it's very outdated. So the next comp we're going to look at is 14 Edgewood Drive in New Hyde Park. It's a split, 3 beds, 2.5 baths. The lot is 6,700. So again, this is much smaller. The interior square footage is smaller at 1,748. It listed on June 1st at $925 and went under contract June 29th at $900. So that went under contract fairly quickly and went for around the list price. And this is the house. There was no pictures for this house. The third house we're going to look at is 3 Locust Lane in New Hyde Park. It's a split with 4 beds, 2.5 baths. The lot is about the same at 11,000. The interior square footage is 1,834, so that's a little bit smaller. It was listed on November 11th at $1.25 million and went under contract on February 6th at $940. So clearly this was overpriced, and it took a couple of months to go under contract because it was overpriced. So let's take a look at that house. So it's dated, but it's not in terrible condition, and it has a pool. The next house we're going to look at is 8 Royal Way in Manhasset Hills. It's a split with 3 beds, 2.5 baths. The lot is 8,800 and the interior square footage is 1,900. It was listed on September 27th at $950. It took a couple of months to go under contract, but it went under contract at $910. So let's take a look at that house. So this is a very outdated house. The next house we're going to look at is 409 Old Courthouse Road in Manhasset Hills. It's a split with 3 beds, 3 baths. The lot size is pretty close, 9,200, and the interior square footage is bigger at 3,200. It was listed on December 1st at $899 and went under contract January 13th at $920. There's no pictures for this house. but it says great opportunity, so that means that it was pretty outdated. The next house we're going to look at is 115 Robbie Lane in Manhasset Hills. It's a split with 3 beds, 2.5 baths. The lot size is 9,200. The interior square footage is 2,100. It listed on June 30th at just under $1 million and went under contract in November at the same list price. I don't know why it took so long for that to go under contract. And these two comps that we just looked at are probably, it's probably somewhere in the middle of these two that you should make your offer at, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. This is the interior of Robbie Lane. It's not terrible, but it's pretty dated. The last house we're going to look at is 89 Robbie Lane in Manhasset Hills. It's a split with 4 beds, 2.5 baths. The lot size is 10,000. The interior square footage is 1,900. It was listed on February 14th at 1.15 and went under contract April 4th at 1.175. Here's what the house looks like. So again, it's not terrible, but it's pretty dated. And what I'm also going to have you notice, what I put on here is I broke down the price per square foot for each house. So it's listed here, $483 for the first, $514, $512, $476, $285. This house should probably be taken out of the mix of this because this is not going along with what the trend is. Then we have $473 and $596. So that is all of the outdated comps to figure out the purchase price. So now let's do a, on the buy side purchase breakdown. So out of all of those houses, the average price per square foot was $477. When you apply that to the subject property's interior square footage, you have the purchase price to be just over $1 million. And then the average sold prices though was $959. So your purchase price is somewhere in the vicinity of this. Now let's take a look at the resell comps. All comps are from the past year, all are splits, and all have Herrick schools. So the first one is 46 Lake Drive in Manhasset Hills. It's a split with 4 beds, 3.5 baths. The lot size is about 8,500 and the interior square footage is 2,635. It was listed on June 6th at 1.398 and went under contract on August 8th at 1.48. So it went over what it was listed for, but it did take 2 months to go under contract. The price per square foot was $561, and let's take a look at what that house looks like. So this is on the newer side, but it's definitely not a flip. But it looks like it's been renovated fairly recently, except for the kitchen. Okay, so the next house we're going to look at is 373 Old Courthouse Road in Manhasset Hills. It's a split with 5 bedrooms, 3.5 baths. The lot size is 8,842. The interior square footage is 2,500. It was listed on October 1st at 1.298 and went under contract January at 1.35. So it went over, but it took some time again. The price per square footage was $531. Let's take a look at that house. So this looks like it's also fairly newly renovated. This could be a flip because it looks like it's staged. The next one is 39 Monterey Drive, Manhasset Hills. It's a split with 5 beds, 2.5 baths. Lot size is 9,700. Interior square footage is 2,300. It was listed February 18th and went under contract March 3rd. So that's pretty quick, 2 weeks. It was listed at 1.22 and went under contract at 1.32. Price per square footage was $560. Let's take a look at that house. So this sold on the higher side, even though it's dated. So that's something to notice, that this sold pretty high. It's not a pretty house at all, and it's pretty dated. So that tells me that the house could resell for more than what this sold for, and this sold for 1.32. So I'm inclined to say it would go a lot more than this. And this is a very dated house. Then we're going to look at 146 Betty Road in New Hyde Park. So this house really should be taken out of consideration when I'm doing the average price per square foot and average sold. I don't know why this sold for so low. So we're going to take a look at that. It's the only house in the comps that's New Hyde Park with Herrick Schools. It's a split with 3 beds, 2.5 baths. The lot size is 9,400 and the interior square footage is 1,700. That's a decent amount smaller than what the subject property is. It listed on January 19th. It had a price drop. So it was listed at 1.179. It had a price drop to 1.159. And then it sold for 1.125. That's pretty low. The price per square footage was $643. And that took 2 months to go under contract. So let's take a look at this house. So this is a pretty nice house. The kitchen looks dated, but it's not terrible. To be honest, I think that this was a flip and it was kind of like a lipstick job, because this looks staged. This is definitely staged. So I don't know why this sold for so low. It doesn't go along with what the other comps say, but I'd like to include it because that does add a small risk factor to the resale. Okay, so let's take a look at the resale breakdown. The average price per square foot was $573. When you apply that to the subject property, the resale price would be 1.26. The average sold comps, it comes to 1.31. And if I took out that lowest comp that I just showed you, you have the resale price at 1.383. You could also, on the resale, if you want to be on the safe side, take 5% off of that. You would deduct $65,000 off of what you think the resale would be. I think the resale is probably safe at 1.35, possibly 1.4. And if you want to be safe, you would deduct $65,000 from that, just in case there's a market shift. Okay, so let's look at the total breakdown of everything. So if you purchase this house at $960, if the renovation costs $200, the taxes are about $10,000 for 6 months. And all of this, I'm factoring a 6-month time frame from the date of purchase to the date of closing on the resale. The carrying costs, I factored in $18,000 for 6 months. The real estate fees on the resale are $54,000, and the closing costs are, I'm factoring in just $20,000. It could be more or less. So the total all-in amount is 1.262. a 20% profit of your all-in amount would be 252,000. 15% of your all-in would be 189,000, and 10% of your all-in would be 126,000. If you resell the property at 1.4, your profit is 138,000, so it's about 13%. The resale of 1.35 is 88,000. Now the variables to look at: will it actually cost 200,000 to renovate? We won't know that until we go there. It could be 150,000. It could be less than that. What are the carrying costs? Are they actually 18,000? That's something for you guys to work out with the person you're getting your money from. Can you actually be in and out in 2 months in regards to the construction? And maybe she'll accept 930 instead of 960. So if she accepted 930 and the renovations cost 150, and then if we resold it at 1.4, the profit would be 218,000. Or if you resold at 1.3, the profit would be 168,000. So the new all-in cost at that adjusted, with the adjustment here, the new all-in cost would be 1.182. A 20% profit of that would be 236,000. So you would be more around 20% if the renovation costed 150 and if you got the house for 930.